Hi friends, welcome back. It has been a very intense couple of weeks for horror, and let me tell you, it is not slowing down anytime soon. I have so many come with me's planned because there are so many films that are coming out in the cinema around me, and Never Let Go is the next on my list. We did get this half a week later than the US, but I am excited because I haven't seen many people talk about it because everyone was so obsessed with the substance, which of course, so was I. So I'm very keen to dive into this one today with you. This one is directed by Alexandre Aja, who of course did High Tension, Crawl, the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, Horns, Mirrors. Honestly, the list goes on, and for me, I feel like his films have either hit or mid. I wouldn't say miss, but definitely mid. So I'm excited to see where this one falls, but I'm a big fan of his stylization and the varied amount of content and I guess approaches to horror that he's had throughout the years. Never Let Go is a horror thriller and it stars Halle Berry, Anthony B. Jenkins, and Stephanie Levine. The film is about a single mother and two twin boys who cannot leave their remote cabin unless they're tethered by rope. It's giving me a little bit of Bird Box, some kind of ominous spirit maybe in the woods watching them, and they have to follow this process, which I do like. I'm a fan of Bird Box, and I like that kind of angle where there is a forced rule put upon people in a situation. But the question in this is, what is the creature or spirit or whatever it is keeping them there? That is where the horror is gonna lie, and that is gonna be whether it works or doesn't. I'm a fan of Halle Berry, who isn't, so I know that the acting is gonna be phenomenal, but I'm very curious to see if it's actually a scary watch. But there's only one way to find out. With so many films right now coming out in the cinema, so many coming on VOD, it's honestly hard to keep up. So I want to let you know whether it's worth your time, whether you should put this one at the top of your to watch list and go out and watch it in cinemas while you still can, or if you can just wait, watch it a little bit later, don't rush, and prioritize some of the other films on your to watch list. Let's go and find out if Never Let Go is worth your time, completely spoiler free. Let's go. Hi friends, I just got out of Never Let Go, and I don't want to say I'm disappointed. I think that film was very solid, but then I was let down by a couple of aspects. I think if this film came out like 10, 15 years ago, people would have been frothing over it. Kind of like Lights Out and all those kinds of films where they have a interesting mystery element and rely a lot on jump scares or just the darkness and the unknown wrapped up in metaphors about family, and it's a bit of a is it or is it not kind of situation. And I think that it starts so solid, especially with the characters and the backstory, which is delivered entirely by narration at the start by one of the kids, which is adorable. And the acting is phenomenal by the children and, of course, Halle Berry. And I think that we would have eaten it up, really eaten it up a while ago. Unfortunately, went down a predictable route, and especially with, I don't want to say the ending, the very ending I'm okay with, but what happened in the third act, or really third chapter, because this is broken up into chapters, I could just feel myself letting go. Mind the pun, I let go. Never let go, I let go. I'm sorry, I let go. So the film does follow a single mother who is living with two sons. They are twins, but one is definitely a little bit smaller than the other. They make a whole thing of it. He's a little bit of the oddball, and he starts to question what his mother has taught them about the outside world. You do see entities, and it is very broad daylight. I think one of the first ones you see is in broad daylight. I think it was really interesting they went all out with that, so there's no hiding of that. There's no real mystery behind the story and the kind of like the folk tale of it all, the history. It's fully exposed to you what the threat is in a way. You kind of get the childlike perspective because you're learning through the kid's eyes, but it's all of the backstory and the history of it all, which is the mystery that you're trying to unwind, and how that pertains to current day and the family. I feel like there's been so many dystopian kind of stories about family. I guess Arcadian is one that we talk about. We talked about Bird Box and all those kinds of films. And I really liked the characters and the lead-in that this film had. It was super simple but very intense, especially Halle Berry's backstory of her character. I just really liked the hint, the glimmer of what was her past and you trying to put that together. I thought there was a lot of interest and intrigue in that, and let me tell you, she scared the shit out of me in this film, and I don't even think she intended to. At one point she just pops up. I audibly went, ah! I think I was so glued into what was happening in that scene. It really got me several times, actually. At the start I did it as well. This film has a couple of jump scares that really got me because I was so hypnotized by the characters and what was happening that it was kind of like offbeat. There are a lot of beautiful kind of like shadows and things that pull focus in the background that end up being, you know, creepy things as well. So look out for that. It's got all types of scares. It's got the mystery element, the darkness, and some jump scares. But probably the best thing about the film besides the performances is the setting. It is so jaw-dropping beautiful. The start, oh my god, this cabin, they're in this cabin in the middle of the woods, and it's all this moss and texture and clarity. The house itself has all of this history and detail and just the set dressing and the atmosphere. It's really got, especially at the start, it feels like that old school haunted vibe, and I loved it. Before I kind of got where it was going and it was revealed very early, the entity or part of that, it felt very haunted, and it had just an old creepy vibe that I really was intrigued by. And I think that, along with the narration, which kind of leads you into the story, it's just a really good way for it to unwind, and I was very curious the whole time. I will say this film is not boring. I was very much glued to it, and maybe it was slightly a letdown because of how much I really enjoyed the lead up and most of the story. The film is very much about blind faith, and I feel like it touches on a couple of elements that we saw in Knock at the Cabin. The Cabin at the End of the World, if you've read the book. And I know a lot of people didn't like it, but this one is a little bit more action-packed. Although it does really push some boundaries, I can tell there was one part of this film that I thought, man, I will understand if I look online, I see people hate this film because of one thing that happens in it. I couldn't believe that it went there, but at the same time, I really respect that as someone who likes when films cross lines, cross boundaries. So I do think it has value. As much as it's a predictable story and one that we've seen touched on before, the blind faith element, the trusting of a parent and what they tell you, and a lot of the metaphors that they touch on, mental health especially, we've seen in many other films that are quite similar, which is why it was such a shame that it went down the path towards the end it did. I don't mind how it ended. I thought it was fine, but it made the film more of I wouldn't say it's like a one-time watch for me. I'll probably revisit this, especially for something like Does This Offend You, where I can pick apart different elements, because there's a lot to talk about in terms of the metaphors. But I felt like for most people, this will be a one-time watch, or a film that really doesn't have a lasting impact on me. I think it's solid for what it is, a one-time watch, a popcorn horror, but it is deeply rooted in metaphors, so it's kind of a sad story, but the mystery of it all is where I think it shines, and it really does keep you on the edge of your seat wondering what is really happening. And I was literally on the edge of my seat every time I went, ah! It's one of those films where it starts off with such a strong story and it felt like it didn't really know how to end that with a bang, and it sets up a couple of different aspects and situations, and you're just kind of waiting for it to play out, and in a way that is predictable, but I don't know how else it would end. But I had a lot of fun. I was intrigued by the story. It had great acting. It looked beautiful. It was so crisp. The start was so crisp. It just kind of trailed off into nowhere. They let go. It let go. Or I let go of it. Either way, this is what I think. If you want to see a movie with Halle Berry doing a knockout horror performance, which we all should support, great acting in a great setting, kind of spooky, some good tension and mystery, this film is for you. But you might want to look at any trigger warnings, okay? Because it does test the viewer, and you'll find that it is a little bit on the predictable side. So I wouldn't say it's the most satisfying watch, but it was a good Wednesday night for me. If you have other films that you think go ahead of that on your to watch list, then probably prioritize them. If you don't check this one out in cinemas, you should definitely check it out when it comes to streaming and make up your own mind. Especially if you like films like Arcadian. This one does the monster stuff better, don't worry about that. I can promise you that. Films about family and hardship and how it tests us. I would have gave this film like a 7 or something like that. I mean, it's a little bit predictable, but a 7. But because I really didn't like where it went at the start of the third act and how it kind of trailed off, I'm gonna give it a 6. I would give it a scare score personally of like 8, but I think it was just me. It really was just me. So I'm gonna give it a 6. My personal score is my personal score. That's why I have a score for that. But for scare, I don't think many people will find it as scary as me. I think it just caught me off guard. Because it honestly was her, like, yelling out to the kids one time. I went, ah! When she was just talking to them. And for originality, I'd give it like a 3. I don't think it was very original at all. But I do like the themes it had, especially on blind faith. But I'll leave that up to you to discover. Have you seen Never Let Go? Did you let go or did you hold on for dear life? Please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings. Don't forget, I checked out Sleep. This is a horror film that was on the top of the official Letterboxd list of 2023. So if you want to know whether it's worth your time, whether I liked it and whether I think you will, check it out here. And this video here, this is a video I picked out for you. I think that all the algorithm thinks you're going to like it. So check it out and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.